Welcome into Bayou Bengals football. So let's talk some LSU football. So the first thing I just wanted to talk about. So I was listening to Omar Spates being interviewed, and he seems just a guy that is confident in his ability. I really like Spates' game a lot. I think he's going to make a big impact for this LSU team. A guy who just looks so comfortable and really shows a lot of his experience going through drills. So yeah, I mean, I know at this point I don't want to sound too much like a broken record because I have talked about Omar Spates a lot, but I think he's gonna fit in nicely to this LSU team. I think he's just what they needed. I think that they needed a guy who, Perkins is not really that true in the box necessarily type of linebacker. Is he capable of doing that? Yes, but Perkins is going to be a guy they're going to need to blitz off the edge, maybe cover in the slot, do stuff like that. So to me, Perkins is kind of a different, kind of a good complement to Spates, a different type of linebacker. So, yeah, Spates is going to have a nice role for this team. I really like Spates' game. He can tackle, he can cover, he can sit in zone coverage. I like the way he can read the quarterback well. He's quick to react to plays, whether it's passing plays or run plays. So, yeah, Spates is gonna bring going to do a lot of nice things for this team. Also, Noah Cain was interviewed. I haven't listened to that yet, but Noah Cain's a guy that's a good player. If you remember, played at Penn State a few years ago, transferred to LSU. So yeah, Noah Cain, part of the very deep, talented running back room at LSU. Noah Cain, what stands out about his game is he can finish runs at the goal line, has a knack for finding the end zone. So has a power element, ability to fall forward consistently, finish at the goal line. Those are some of the strengths that Noah Cain brings to his game. So, but yeah, with LSU, I'm so excited to see how Mason Smith performs this year healthy, and I think that I think that he's a guy that just his presence alone, being on the field, is going to leave offenses a little bit on edge. I think that Mason Smith just is a big, strong, physical dude. He's a guy that just, when he walks onto the field, he's a guy that when an offensive player lines up across from him, he goes, man, it's going to be a long day just by looking at him. I'm sure that point is really I'm sure that really thought goes through his head after a few plays, but that is the first initial thought. So, yeah, Mason Smith, due for a big year, coming off an injury. You feel like guys that come off a major injury, it seems like the next year, even if they don't have as good a year, it seems like they do stay fully healthy. So you expect Mason Smith to stay fully healthy and have a really a nice season for LSU and be impactful, be dominant against the run, a guy that consistently wins one-on-one pass rush situations. But yeah, Malik Neighbors. So yeah, I like that. Malik Neighbors, obviously such a talent at wide receiver for LSU, but I like that he's getting a lot of praise from the coaching staff about his work ethic. So I think that's really cool because you want your best players to also be, the guys that work the hardest, guys that lead. Now, it doesn't sound like he's a huge vocal leader, maybe necessarily, but as a guy who he just brings it. A guy that just runs routes with an urgency. To me, that's something you got to really like in wide receivers. Kind of get vibes of Zay Flowers from last year. Just a guy who has plays with a sense of purpose. Gets off the line of scrimmage, gets out of breaks and cuts with an urgency to get open and get the ball in his hands and immediately turn upfield. Now, I think he actually can improve in yards after the catch. That's something that their offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock is really hammered in, getting yards after the catch. So yeah, well, hopefully he continues to improve in that aspect of his game. But yeah, Malik Neighbors, a very talented football player for LSU, and he's going to have a chance to have a big time breakout season. But yeah, the wide receiver depth as a whole is certainly interesting. I mean, you look at Kyron Lacey's kind of the guy that everyone's just begging to break out and show his full potential. You look at Chris Hilton getting a lot of buzz, another guy that people are maybe not necessarily begging for him to break out, but would absolutely it would be so crucial for this offense to reach an elite level if he does break out. So yeah, I look at Hilton, Kyron Lacey, guys people would certainly love to break out, and probably the guys that have the highest chance of having that breakout big time season. So yeah, I think it sounds like Sheldon Sampson Jr. So I kind of made the call, or made the prediction, if you will, that one of these true freshman receivers is going to break out. It appears Sheldon Sampson Jr. based off of what I'm hearing. Now, I've just watched just a few clips of practice. I'm obviously not at practice every day evaluating these guys. Unfortunately, I wish I could be, but to me, it sounds like Sheldon Sampson is the front runner to be the breakout guy. It sounds like his ability has really been on full display. Mike Denbrock was giving him high praise for what he could do. So yeah, I think that Sheldon Sampson, it sounds like is going to be the breakout guy of the freshman. So we'll see how much opportunities he gets. We'll see how many snaps he plays. But yeah, he's a good player. Good run after the catch. A guy that he looks so comfortable with the ball in his hands. Just has a really good feel for the wide receiver position overall. A guy that can really go up and get it. Jump balls, 50-50 balls are more like 80-20, 90-10 in high school. Maybe in college it'd be a little bit of a different story, but really does show the ability to go up and get the ball. And yeah, he can make adjustments to the football pretty nicely. So, and then yeah, hands are really good. So yeah, Sheldon Sampson's game, there's a lot to like there, and there's a lot of high-end potential that maybe we'll see him start to reach. Maybe not the full potential year one, but we'll start to see a lot of a lot of flashes of his game. Yeah, the tight ends seems to continue to be a popular question, and the main guy, it all starts Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor is the best tight end on the team, but yeah, Connor Gilbreath. I'm hearing a little bit more and more about Gilbreath. He's going to be that guy that can block. I think Jackson McGowan's a guy who, it sounds like he's a year away as far as getting his body right physically, but I feel like this guy has such a unique, such a good receiving skill set that I feel like they're going to have to get him on the field year one. I feel like you don't want to waste, not waste because they're gonna play him eventually, but I feel like you want to utilize his skill set, especially in a pivotal year where you got a chance to do something special this year. So hopefully they play Jackson McGowan. But yes, some of the other tight end, yeah, Mac Markway, blocking, like I've touched on. Blocking's the name of Markway's game. We'll see how he performs this year. Giovanni Patterson, another guy they have at tight end. So yeah, they're actually quietly pretty deep with the tight end room. So yeah, I think that tight end certainly a position to watch for the LSU Tigers. We'll see who really emerges of the freshmen. As of right now, it sounds like Mac Markway is the favorite to really emerge from the tight end group. So kind of watch how that develops. Markway is a guy who looks the part, and I feel like you can't devalue what this guy can do as a receiver as well. But yeah, I mean, LSU, you look at, it's kind of interesting when I look at the preseason poll, and to me, like I'm looking at like ranking the top teams. For some reason, it's always, I always want to kind of default to Georgia 1, Alabama 2, but like I feel like LSU like I always forget to put LSU at number 3, but if you're honest, LSU probably is the third most talented football team in the country. Now, I guess you could argue Michigan, you could argue USC, maybe you could argue, maybe Clemson, but honestly, like if you're honest with yourself and you factor in the trenches, like the offensive and defensive line play, which in the SEC, especially at LSU, Georgia, and Alabama have been superior to other schools, you probably could make, with that into consideration, that is probably the ultimate case for making LSU number 3. But yeah, I think Bama's going to be good. Georgia's going to be really good once again. But yeah, how LSU matches up with them is the ultimate burning question. It's a question that, like every question you have going into a football season is going to get answered. But how they met, it is an interesting question to really ponder. How they will match up against Alabama and Georgia if they do play Georgia in the SEC championship. But yeah, I was surprised. I thought that, to me, I feel like you should have seen, I don't know, maybe the LSU win against Alabama we should have seen coming, because if you think about it, the past couple years, in the years that LSU was losing, they really weren't outclassed from a physical standpoint, athlete standpoint at the line of scrimmage. They were just, Alabama just was, they had a little bit more skill set, more skill players, with the exception of 2019 when LSU had Chase and Jefferson. So they had a little bit of the edge at the skill position players, but for the most part, it was fairly even as far as talent goes. And then Brian Kelly comes in, a really good coach. So you feel like that was the ultimate. Brian Kelly was the kind of the missing piece to the puzzle for the most part. Now I know Ed Orgeron beat him, and I know Les Miles beat him too, but you feel like the way they won this year, you feel like that's sustainable. And what I mean by that, I guess basically what I'm trying to say is I feel like Les Miles can, Brian Kelly, I feel like Brian Kelly can not only just beat, not just go 1 for 3 against Saban or 1 for 4, but maybe 2-2 against Saban, 2-3, 3-3. If he coaches there for several years, you feel like that was a kind of a tone-setting win that gives you confidence that you can do that again in the future. But yeah, I mean, the schedule, LSU schedule, pretty tough. All starts week 1 against Florida State. Florida State is going to be a tough matchup. It's going to be a tough, hard-hitting, physical, high-intense football game. I mean, obviously they all are, but especially this one with the stakes very high, and it's exciting that we get a week 1 game like this. This in this era of college football where we're at right now, we kind of are starved for more games like this. Now, with all the new conference realignment, we're going to get more, with teams adding to the Big Ten, we're going to get more games like this. But I think this is going to be a crucial game as far as I think it's going to be a big game as far as high ratings, high excitement, and just people excited to see two traditional powers on the same field in a week 1 game where a lot of weeks in college football there is just people are starved for some big games. Because it's just, people, like, even in the Pac-12, like, there's no disrespect to these schools, but how often are you tuning into, like, who's tuning into Oregon State and Arizona? Now, I know Oregon State's a little better, but Oregon State just not a traditional power. So how many people or Indiana versus Rutgers? How many people are tuning in? Like, is that just what's the expression? That just doesn't really move the needle for you. So you feel like, hopefully this game has some high ratings. Hopefully it lives up to the hype. I assume it's going to be a good game. It has all the makings to be a close, competitive football game, and hopefully LSU comes out on top at the end. But yeah, Florida State Florida State last year, I was surprised, really presented a unique challenge for LSU. You really saw that Florida State really can make things tough at the line of scrimmage. They're not just a team that, Florida State, not just a team with athletes and skill position players and speed. They do have some big bodies up front, and that's going to be no different this year. It's going to be a strong defensive line for the Florida State Seminoles. Fabian Lovett, Braden Fisk, the transfer from Western Michigan. They got experience at the linebacker position. Kalen DeLoach. The secondary should be okay. So, yeah, Florida State going to present a tough challenge as far as the line of scrimmage goes. So, yeah, we'll hear looking forward to hearing what Mike Norvell and Brian Kelly say once they take the podium for that game week. But, yeah, coming up quick here. So, yeah, I know at this point we've done a lot of talking about LSU, so it's going to be fun once the games come on to really start talking about the game results, who are the key guys, who's standing out, which one of the transfers emerges, which of the true freshmen emerges. So yeah, that's all going to be super exciting once we get some game tape out there. But yeah, right now just a lot of talk of scouting guys, kind of the strength of the position, maybe the question marks. So that I'm going to think of this on the fly. So what is the big question mark for LSU this year? Well, I think that actually posing that question and really having to ponder, I think that gives you a lot of confidence in this LSU team, because even though I guess the one question mark is the secondary. But even then, I'm a believer in Zy Alexander's game, and I'm a believer in Deuce Chestnut. I don't think Deuce Chestnut is like an elite defensive back, but I think he's a good defensive back. So to me, I feel like I guess with the exception of the secondary, I don't even think running. I guess running back is a question just because you don't have high end talent there. But then does it really matter with all that depth? I mean, even if all guys are just average running backs, let's say Goodwin's average, Kane's average, Emery, even if all those guys are just average, don't you think with the way they rotate in, don't you think that is enough you feel like that's enough in itself to really make this run game strong? So, I mean, even though you worry about the overall depth of the running backs, or you worry about the high-end talent, just the overall depth, they're just going to have so many fresh bodies. Guys are going to be able to run as hard as they can. So, yeah, I think it is a concern a little bit that they don't necessarily have high-end talent at running back, but I think they'll be just fine. But yeah, I guess hypothetically, let's say the secondary is the question mark. Then, to me, how much of a factor is that going to play against a big-time opponent like Georgia or Alabama? Is that going to be like kind of the Achilles heel in the loss, or even against Florida State? And I'm going to say, maybe not. But I think, to me, like I'd say if they lose to Alabama or Georgia, I guess that is the case for me not being concerned about the secondary, because I feel like if they lose to Alabama or Georgia, it's really not just strictly the secondary. Now, maybe that plays a part in it. Maybe that is the reason, but that's why I'm not overly concerned about the secondary, because I feel like, I don't know. I guess I don't. I don't know, thinking too far down the road at this point. I think that to speculate how they would lose a game to Alabama or Georgia, but yeah, I guess that's the fun part. We will. We'll just be anxiously waiting. To me, if they matched up today against Georgia, you feel like that would, I guess if I had to make a prediction, you feel like Georgia would have the slight edge, probably would win in a close game, but you feel like the gap, that gap is closed this year, and we don't really necessarily have evidence of that yet because we haven't seen LSU, but you feel like the gap is closing a little bit just based off of everything LSU's done to become a stronger, more well-rounded roster. But yeah, you kind of you get the feel like, LSU, you get the feel like Georgia is still the superior team. And then, the matchup with Bama, Bama is just, even though Bama hasn't been as talented on the offensive line is when you go back to 2020, they still have, it's a lot of big physical bodies up front. I think that's why they still, I'd say on paper, LSU would have the slight edge right now, talent-wise, against Alabama, but Alabama just still presents a challenge for LSU just because of how well or how physical and strong they are at the line of scrimmage. I know they don't really have necessarily the dudes offensively, but still have J.C. Latham. J.C. Latham, a really talented tackle, one of the best tackles in college football. So, Alabama still is going to present a tough challenge, not only for, not just for everyone in the SEC, but for LSU once again. But hopefully, you hope to see Harold Perkins really flash in one of those games. You hope that Harold Perkins, kind of like last year, you hope he's just, and you hope he just is big time in at least I'm going to say at least 2 SEC games. Like you saw the Arkansas game. You hopefully that at least there's 2 games where he just flashes that acceleration and he's just all over the field making plays. So hopefully he can do that for him this year. This is a guy that has a lot of high-end upside, a lot of athletic ability. So, Harold Perkins, this is a guy who, I'm just blown away by the guy's movement skills. And to me, I was not, you look at him, 5-star, number 1 linebacker coming out of high school, and you think, just based off of that alone, you think this guy has a high upside, potential, high floor, high ceiling, a guy that's just going to be everywhere, and he really showed that. So hopefully, I guess, even if he doesn't take another step, you hope that for his sake, in his development, hopefully does not take any steps back. So, I know he was involved in that scuffle, so I'm not really concerned about that too much. But you hope Harold Perkins does not take any steps backwards. You hopefully continues to improve and get better, because he is just a really good all-around football player, and hopefully he just keeps developing his instincts. So, Perkins, he's gonna get a lot of talk this year if he has a season. If he does have a season better than last year, he's gonna be a topic of conversation for sure, not just amongst LSU fans and LSU media and even SEC media, but the national media will be talking about him a lot. Like you'll be seeing the game day features. You'll be seeing Kirk Herbstreit, Fowler when they call in LSU games. You're gonna hear them talk a lot about what Perkins can do. But safeties, Major Burns, Greg Brooks. So Major Burns, they're going to need Major Burns to number one, stay healthy, but they're going to need him to flash some of they're going to need him to be a high-end tackler. So I would stress to him, kind of like I kind of had this take with Ogofu and Swinson, kind of their skill sets. You know that Swinson, Ogofu, Burns, they're not necessarily going to be elite game changers, and Brian Kelly understands that. Even though, to me, because like him saying that maybe is kind of maybe not insulting, or I guess it is kind of insulting a little bit, but to me, Brian Kelly understands those guys are not going to be elite game changers, but they do have a role in this defense, and they do have some traits that really can make them have a really nice season and be impactful somewhat. So to me, with Major Burns, he's a hitter and a tenacious tackler who knows how to take angles and come up and be physical. So to me, if you're Brian Kelly, I'm stressing to Burns that's you have to play that role really well. You have to do that role exceptionally well, and that's what we're going to ask you. You need to be that hard-hitting downhill tackler, and if you start missing tackles, if you start turning down tacklers, maybe not turning down tacklers like he doesn't want to tackle them, but not coming in as aggressively, then we're going to have to find someone else. And Andre Sam, if Andre Sam is the backup strong safety, he's going to be begging to get some playing time too. So depth at corner, so they built some depth at corner, depth at safety. Hopefully they continue to get high-end, or maybe not necessarily high-end level play, but hopefully they get hopefully get strides of improvement in the LSU secondary. So I'm going to wrap with that. Thanks for tuning in to Bayou Bengals Football. Make sure to stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show.